Да.
Yeah. Так, да, сегодня мы проходим с вами Amazon EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud. И это один из базовых сервисов Amazon и, могу сказать, часто используемых услуг AWS. И вчера тоже отметила, что Amazon является один из первых предлагаемых услуг. Он был разработан еще, он находился в бета-тестировании в 2002 году еще, но начиная с 2006 года он вышел из бета-версии и начали предлагать клиентам. Вообще, что такое вычислительные EC2 Cloud, вычислительные ресурсы? Это облако, то есть это просто сервер, как вы видите на картинке, сервер, который состоит там, естественно, из CPU, Central Processing Unit, RAM, это хранилище и операционная система. И вместе с этим есть разные модели покупки. Тут у меня есть иллюстрация серверов. Почему я это показываю? Чтобы там, например, для начинающих IT-специалистов EC2 sounds like something mythical. Чопон, вы же понимаете на английском, да?
Да, я понимаю. Можете вообще полностью на английском говорить.
Да, давайте я все на английском буду объяснять. Рамиль, Балгын, вы не против?
Нет, конечно.
Я нет.
Все, отлично. All right, here we have servers, and the reason I'm just showing this to you so you don't overthink and have this mental picture of what is EC2. All right, so here I'm breaking down main server components and pointing out what is EC2 and how do we interact with or interface with EC2 servers. Here, as you can see, it's just a physical server which is hosted in some AWS global regions. And this is bare metal. On top of that, we have host server, hypervisor, and then on top of hypervisor, we have these virtual servers. So these virtual servers is EC2 instances, what is defined by AWS. Hypervisor is just a, you can think of a program that helps to virtualize your servers, virtualize the resources of the server. All right, so here are the supported operating systems officially supported by AWS. So they have Amazon Linux, and they support Red Hat, SUSE, Ubuntu, and Windows. Don't pay attention to the version of the servers. They support Ubuntu 18.04, 14.04, and so as with Windows, they support Windows 19, 12, and I think they stopped supporting in 2008. So here I have information on the pricing of EC2 instances. They have 4 different pricing options. First is on demand, and it's basically you get EC2 servers, and the way how you pay it on an hourly basis or on a per second basis. And second one, it's spot instances. So spot instances, you can save up to 90% when you use spot instances and compare to on-demand instances. And basically, what is the use case of spot instances? You can, let's say you have some batch job overnight, you can point out, or you can define the pricing option. Let's say like you want to use servers for 35 cents per hour. And if there is available resource which match your parameters, then you can use spot instances. And one important thing about using spot instances, let's say you said that you'll use servers, which is 35 cents per hour. Yeah. And let's say someone offers a better price than, let's say like 45 cents. And in that case, the Amazon will prefer to sell the server for those who offers a better pricing option. So that's why when you are using spot instances, from the client perspective, you always have to make sure that you are not running production critical applications on those instances. And the way how we use it, we always combine on-demand with spot servers, spot instances. And for instance, for my own project, we do manage infrastructure for Chicago train system. And Chicago train system, it has a certain spikes. So for instance, people check the train schedule like 5 to 7 in the morning. And then they also check after hours, like from 4 to 6 in the evening. So for those hours, we have set up auto scaling. And auto scaling is just I would say like very cool, very highly used service of AWS. And auto scaling allows applications to scale automatically. There are different triggers. You can scale based on CPU threshold. You can scale on memory. You can scale on number of incoming sessions. So there are lots of things that you can customize with auto scaling. So auto scaling, in simple words, it's just a capability of AWS, and you can add more resources as your application requires. So yeah, the way how we use spot instances, we have golden image, or we have on-demand server, and we combine this on-demand server with spot instance. Any questions about this?
No.
Cool. All right, the next one is savings plan. Savings plan is relatively new pricing model. And basically, with this savings model, clients commit to use certain, certain capacity. So for instance, you can say like, I will use T2 micro, or this savings plans also applies to Fargate. Fargate is just a container platform, and it is managed by AWS. All you have to do, deploy your application in container platform. So this savings plan applies both to EC2 servers as well as to Fargate platform. And then the last option is reserved instances. So reserved instances have 3 different options: all upfront, partial upfront, then I'm forgetting the last one. Give me one sec. So basically, when using reserved instance, you can think of покупать оптом, да, можно сказать, покупать оптом. And you are committing that you will use this certain server for 1 year. You can 1 year option, 1 year term, or 3 year term, or 6 months term. So let me show you real quick how we can find out pricing for certain instance types. So if you navigate to calculator.aws, you will see this interface. And basically, using this interface, you can find out how much you are going to pay to a certain server. Not only servers, but as you can see, you can select any AWS service that you may be interested. And from here, for instance, let's say we want to find out pricing for Amazon EC2, right? So we have, first thing, you have to select the region, and one thing which you have to be certain, the servers in, for instance, in California, North California might be a little expensive than in Virginia. The reason is, as you know, in different states, there is different tax rules, there's different, regulation rules. And for that reason, some servers or services of AWS may be a little expensive than in one region. So yeah, so let's try to find out, some server pricing for North Virginia region. And second option you have to choose is operating system. Usually Windows almost always a little expensive than Linux or any other operating system. And the reason for this, as you know, Windows is big on licensing, so that's why it's always a little expensive. So yeah, let's choose, as you can see, I have different options for operating system, but let's stick with Linux. And then now let's choose different instance types. So for instance, I can search by instance name, or I can, search by resource parameters. For instance, virtual CPU size 4, memory is 16, and then I can also, add more requirements as I can. For instance, GPU or etc. So for now, let's just find out like how much I have to pay for server that has 4 virtual CPUs, 16 gig of RAM. And I think this is the capability of most modern MacBook Pro, I think. I have 4 cores, 8 threads, and then I have 16 gig of RAM. So, okay, so here, as you can see, I have this different pricing model. Let's choose standard reserved instances, or let's try on-demand instances, and then we can compare with reserved instances. So on-demand instance, and then this is options for the storage amount. So I can use 100 gig of storage capacity, and then this is how much I will have to pay on a monthly basis. All right, so $10 for storage option, and then 98.11 cents is for the server itself. So approximately for 1 year, you'll have to pay like $1,200, a little over $1,200. So now let's say the same server, and let's choose for standard reserved instance. And as I mentioned, there's 3 different options: no upfront, partial upfront, and full upfront. And there's 2 different terms, 1 year and 3 year. So the general rule of thumb, when you are purchasing reserved instances, we always suggest or advise our clients to go with 1 year option. And the reason for it, once you commit to a certain server or certain server type, you cannot really change it. And let's say you are a startup, or let's say like for some reason your application stops working after 6 months, you still have another 6 months of commitment. So in this case, what you can do, you can resell it on Amazon Marketplace. It's kind of easy, right? But what happens in the case when you choose 3-year term and you have a 3-year commitment? In that case, it's going to be really a little difficult to resell your reserved instances. So that's why we always advise our client to go with 1-year option with either like partial upfront or full upfront. So let's say when we choose standard reserved instance with 1-year term and payment option is full upfront. And for storage option, yeah, let's leave it same. And then now you can see like I'm saving almost 50%. So now this is shown for 1 year. 1 year I can pay only 689, whereas with on-demand option it was like $108 per month. All right. So any questions around this?
No question.
Okay. So yeah, this is really cool website. Before it used to be just simple HTML, but now they changed it. As I mentioned, you can select any service and get pricing as you want. So it will be included in the PowerPoint. All right, let's go back to my PowerPoint. Okay, so now let me explain a little bit about instance generations. So I will explain in detail when we go to AWS console, but each server has some sort of denomination, t2.micro or, t2, i2 x large. So this this number i2, it's just a generation. And you can imagine as number grow, the later is the generation. So for instance, if I have like, M5, then M5 means the latest generation of that server type. And then second is a size. So size can be nano, micro, small, medium, X large, 2X large, 4X large, 8X large, and I think it goes up to 24X large. And you can imagine as this size grows, the better server is, or I mean, in terms of resources, you get more CPU, you get more memory, and etc. Yeah, and then this basically explains what kind of server or what kind of instance family you are choosing. So now let me explain instance types. There are 5 different instance families. The first one is a general purpose. And general purpose, the use case for general purpose EC2 servers is just, they have like a nice balance of all of these servers, or all of the resources, I mean. They have like, there's no, okay. So to understand this better, let's just like compare with different car models. For instance, Toyota car, right? It's a nice car, it's not too expensive, and in terms of performance, it's also not too bad compared to sport cars. So this general purpose EC2 servers you can think of as Toyota Camry, right? Where you don't require, where your application is not not CPU intensive, not GPU intensive. It's just a normal application which may have some spikes over a weekend or once in a year. So for those kind of applications, you can use general purpose EC2 servers. And then the second one, it's a compute optimized. So let's say if you have a application that requires lots of CPU, in that case, you can deploy your application in these servers. It could be like blockchain, it could be any type of application that requires lots of CPU. And then the second one, third one, it's memory optimized. So for memory optimized, again, the use case for these servers is to deploy applications that do lots of compute on a memory. Could be like caching service, could be databases, and yeah, I'm trying to think of use case. Yeah, those are the applications which suits really well for memory optimized servers. And then the other one, the next option is accelerated computing. So accelerated computing is designed for machine learning, also self-driving cars. So let's say there is an application to support self-driving cars. They also deploy in this accelerated computing instance types. And then the last one is storage optimized. These servers really well suited for application that is read and write intensive. So again, if you want to memorize this and kind of simplify it for yourself, just think of different car models. For instance, Toyota Camry, it's a really nice car, but you cannot show up with Toyota Camry for car racing, right? Everything has its own use case. And so as with sport cars, it's really, in terms of performance and in terms of acceleration, these cars are great for car racing, but on a day-to-day basis, would you really buy this one? So again, when you are choosing instance types, always think of your nature of your application, what kind of resources needed for your application, and based on that, choose different instance types. Okay. Any questions about instance types?
No question.
All right.
Это все там, да, то, что вы подбираете для клиентов, или у вас же это на автоматизированном уровне, да, происходит, то, что вы, там, клиент приходит, у него приложение, сайт, да, например, маркет, и вы сразу же подбираете, да, или как? Или
да,
это...
прежде чем посадить клиента на определенный сервер, у нас есть discovery sessions, и у нас есть IRL, то есть это initial requirement list, где мы заполняем, мы сидим с клиентами и заполняем, то есть мы изучаем их application, цели application, какие там, если дата-центры, они делают migration традиционного, то есть из data center, мы смотрим логи уже существующего сервера. Там, например, там, какие usage patterns мы замечаем, там он CPU больше требует или memory больше требует. И исходя от этого мы предлагаем там, окей, client XYZ, да, там, мы посмотрели ваши логи, и основываясь на этом, мы предлагаем вам использовать там, T2X Large. А если это совсем новый клиент, который только там задеплоили свой application на Амазоне, мы обычно выбираем general purpose, то есть общего назначения, и мониторинг, делаем мониторинг там в течение 3 месяцев, и после этого логи укажут там application требует больше CPU или там application требует больше memory. И основываясь на этом, мы можем менять server types. И, естественно, там, как я уже отметила, application, некоторые, например, если, скажем, у нас есть клиент, и они делают блокчейн, там, ICO stage, естественно, мы их не будем ставить на general purpose. Надо ставить на CPU optimized или memory optimized instance types. Окей?
То есть это полноценное проведение обследования с целью выяснения как раз-таки, да, потребностей заказчика.
Да, абсолютно. Это вот interface EC2 servers, and let's try to, let me do real quick, kind of like show and tell. So here you can, on the top, you can always switch to new EC2 experience. Amazon changed this interface I think on a quarterly basis. And they try to improve this UI interface, but I always try to stick to the previous one because I got used to it, and I know where things are. So if I want to, I can, this first option here, it just shows like my running or stopped instances. And second option, I can choose I can see different instance types. So of course, I don't know all these instance types. And sometimes if I want to see, how much memory or how much CPU offers T2X large, I can always come and check from this dashboard. So for instance, let's say, if I want to know like how much C5 24X large offers, then I can see it has 96 virtual CPU, architecture type, and then memory, network performance, on-demand Linux pricing, then Windows pricing. Okay, and then launch templates, second option, next toggle. So this launch template, it's basically, you can have like one server, everything configured, and then you can create a sample from that server and use in this launch template. So launch template, it's a main component of auto scaling. So how do I explain auto scaling? So auto scaling, it's basically, if you remember, I was explaining one of our clients, and we manage Chicago train transportation system. I can actually, as a matter of fact, I can show you metrorail.com. So this is basically, web application of the Chicago train Chicago transportation system. And for instance, I can, what kind of things I can do on this, web application? I can buy tickets. I can check schedules. Let's say if I'm trying to go to, from one county to a different one. And if I want to check the date and time or schedule, I can do everything in here. So now going back to auto scaling, how do you think, what time of the day users, think for a second, think that you are a citizen of Chicago, right? You are a resident of Chicago. And if you're trying to go from one place to another, usually, if you're working in downtown area, you would check after hours from 4 to 6. Or if you're coming from the suburbs, you would check like from 6 to 8 in the morning, right? So we expect high surge of users during these 2 hours. And in order to make sure that we have enough resources for this morning hours and then after hours, we can use auto scaling. Auto scaling allows to add more resources as application requires. So is it all clear?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, cool. And during these hours, we can use auto scaling, and auto scaling has 2 main components. It's launch templates, and then the other component is auto scaling group itself. So in launch templates, we can basically specify which operating system we want to use, which instance type. And then in auto scaling group component, we can set the rules. For instance, if CPU utilization goes over 60%, add 1 more server. All right, so that's the logic of auto scaling. And here we have spot requests. If I want to purchase spot servers, I can come to this dashboard and define or select one of these options, and then select my operating system, and select all the network parameters and etc. So the idea is, again, going back to my spot instance explanation, you can select this spot servers, and if there is a certain server which you specified is available, you can save up to 70%, or as you can see here, these other saving options that you can get. All right. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna go over on each of them. So let's just try to launch new server. Click launch, and then first here I have to choose an operating system. So let's say I want to launch Ubuntu server. Let's select Ubuntu server. And then here, remember I was talking about different families. And T2, it's just burstable server types. And usually the use case for this instance types is for developers when they're testing something, and there is no like mission critical production application, then in that case, we can always use T2 or T instance types. So as I was explaining yesterday, T2 micro, it's a server type that goes under free tier eligible category. So let's choose T2 micro. Here I'm specifying my VPC option. Basically, it's just a network that you want to segregated network that you want to deploy in certain networking settings. And as you can see here, I can deploy up to 20 servers at once. And servers, each of the AWS services, they have different limits. And limit for the servers is 20, but let's say if you need more servers, you can always open support case and increase this limit. All right, and then I don't prefer, and always make sure enabled so we can SSH our server. This is for, let's say if I am launching or if I'm deploying Windows server, I can automatically join this to Active Directory. And IAM role, we talked about IAM role. So just for demo purpose, let's assign this S3 full access role. And then here I have CPU options in here. So this is interesting user data. So let me explain this user data. So for instance, let's say I want to deploy web server and I don't want to manually SSH to the server and do some configuration. So how can I bootstrap my server? So this is the place where you can put your scripting. You can put your bash script, and during the launch time, your server will self-configure. So let me demonstrate that actually. So for that, I want to choose Amazon Linux. Then T2 micro. Let's enable. So I'm gonna copy paste some Linux commands. Let me briefly go over about this Linux commands. First, what I'm trying to do, I'm just installing, this is all Linux commands. I'm installing certain applications, I can say, or certain packages. So I'm installing this HTTPD package. I'm installing wget, and then changing my destination to this directory. It's basically a directory where I can store all files which I want to display on the browser for end users. Then I'm doing some, trying to grab some content from the GitHub. And after that, I'm starting this service, HTTPD service. So HTTPD service is just a web server. And using this service, you can, deploy your web applications. It basically helps to serve your web applications or website. And then
for Windows, is the same, or it's only for Linux? Is like this?
For Windows, you have to use PowerShell, but it has the same capability. If you want to, let's say, like during your lunchtime, if you want to set some scripts and bootstrap your server, you can always put some PowerShell scripting. Okay. Next option is we are trying to add storage. For our purposes, 8 gig is enough. But let me point out a few things in here. I can add many EBS options as I want. And if you want to increase like size, for instance, let's say I want 100. Let's say for here I want like 350. I can always choose EBS size. And then volume type, there are different volume types. Usually we go with general purpose. And then if I need to encrypt my servers, all I can do is just click this button and then choose default encryption key, which is provided by AWS. Okay. And next, add tags. For tags, for instance, let's say I want to name my server, and let's say go viral -web server. Next is a security group. So security group, if you're coming from traditional, IT management infrastructure, it's just a firewall where you can set rules for incoming network traffic. So for instance, in this case, what kind of rules we want to set? So I want to be able to SSH to my server. That's why I'm opening this port 22. And then also I'm trying to serve some web content, and that's why I'm opening port 80 and 443. To use port 443, we have to integrate our server with application load balancer or CloudFront, or we can also set a self-signed certificate on the server itself. Click and then launch, and make sure you have this key. So in my case, yes, I do have this key, and let's click launch instance. And it's going to take a few minutes to start this server. While my server is running, let me explain a few things on the launch. So if you remember, I did mention that there are different, I did mention operating systems that is officially supported by AWS, right? I mentioned that we have Amazon Linux, Red Hat, SUSE, Ubuntu, and Windows. But what if I want to launch different operating system? For instance, let's say I want to run Arch Linux or Kali Linux. I can always check community AMIs. And if there is operating system that is not officially supported by AWS, I can try to find from community AMIs. And for instance, let's say like I want to run Arch Linux. So yeah, that's how you can try to find any operating system that you are interested. And then AWS Marketplace. So this is basically operating systems with predefined or pre-configured application. So let's say if you want to deploy WordPress and you don't want to configure this, you can come to this marketplace and select from here. Okay. So my server is ready. Cool. So as you can see, I was able to serve this content by setting the user data. So again, let me show you here. Select your server, and then if you click on actions, there are different options. First thing is you can connect, you can create template from this instance, you can manage the instance state, you can stop, reboot, terminate. Instance settings, you can attach it to auto scaling group, but the one that I'm interested is view and change user data. So again, here is my script, and using this script, I was able to serve this web content. Okay.
Nazgul, как завис, что ли? Я вижу step 4 add storage, да?
Step 4, да.
Okay.
Мой скрин завис.
Ну нет, на самом деле зависаний нет. Я вижу, как передвигается все. То есть сейчас Comic Series. Может быть, у вас проблемы с интернетом, Болган?
Да, кажется, у меня. Извините, пожалуйста.
Сейчас видно, Болган, как я навигейт делаю? Или...
Да, теперь да.
Окей, круто. Так, да. Что я показывала? Instance settings, view user data. So yeah, using this script, I was able to serve that web content. So a few things here. We can, description is all, you know, really, it provides like all the detailed information about this server. And you can see like in which VPC it was deployed, what kind of operating system it's using, the EBS capacity, how much storage I have. Also, if I want to see what kind of rules in terms of networking, what kind of rules I have, you can always click this view inbound rules and see what kind of rules you have. For outbound rules, it's always, you know, allow all outbound rules or outgoing connections. If you want to manage, if you want to restrict outbound connections, you can choose, or you can use network access control list, but with the help of security group, there is no such option. Outbound rule is always has to be like wide open, which means your server can access anything on the internet. Okay, and second thing is status check. Few things to point out here. There's two different status checks, system status check and then instance status check. System status check, it basically checks the availability of underlying hardware resources. If something crashed on the server side or on the hardware resource, right, then system reachability check may fail. If it's an issue on the operating system, then you have to look into instance status check. The next option is monitoring. So these are the default monitoring parameters that comes by AWS. For instance, if I want to check, CPU utilization, I can select this this dashboard here, and then I can get CPU utilization parameters, and I can also customize the timeline as well, so as the period. Okay. And then tags. So this is what we said during the lunchtime, but we can also add additional tags. For instance, let's say who created this server, right? I can add employee tag and then say like Naz added this server. Okay. So now let me demonstrate a few things in here. Once my server is created, what are the things that I can do against this server? I can change the instance type. So let's say I deploy my application on T2 Micro, and then after a couple hours or after a certain time, I realize that this is not what I wanted. Or let's say my application is crashing and due to insufficient resources. So what I can do, I can change this instance type. How can I do this? First, I need to stop the server. While it's stopping, any questions?
No questions.
Can you show it again?
Sorry, Chobon, what was your question?
How did you stop this server?
How do you stop the server? Oh, sorry, I think I went too quick. So just select the server, and then from actions, click on instance state, and then from here, select stop or, any option that you would like. All right, so we stopped the server, and then... Чопон, я плохо слышу вас.
Okay. Now? I don't
Now
know why. So we can terminate also, yeah, from there.
Yes, yeah, we can terminate.
If we terminate, can we again launch it, the same server, or is it possible?
No, as it is, you cannot do this, but in the next demo, I will show you how to create an image from this server or how to create a sample. So let's say if you accidentally terminate the server, the other option, you can roll back from the backup, or you can create the same server from the AMI image.
Okay.
So that's a great question. And in the next demo, I will show you how you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I stopped my server, and then I want to change the instance type to something bigger. So how can I do this? Let's go to actions, and then from here, select instance setting, and then change instance type. And here are other options. So T2 micro, let's say I want to change to T2 medium. And apply. So now let's go back to options and then start. Same thing with the root device. So for instance, if I want to change root device, I can always come to volumes and then select the volume that you want to resize. Click actions, modify volume, and I can set new size. One thing to remember here, the limit for the server's EBS volume size is 16 gigabyte. You cannot go over this here. minimum it's 1 gigabyte and then maximum is 16 gigabyte. If it's not enough, you can always add another additional volumes. One thing is you always have to make sure your volume is, let's say if I want to add another like 100 gig for the same server, I have to make sure that my server, my volume is on the same availability zone as my server. Okay. All right, so my server is ready, I think. So my server is ready. And let's go to website again. It's not ready yet.
I have another question.
Sure.
Okay, I created this account AWS Amazon.com yesterday. So it is free for 12 months, right?
Free for 12 months, but you have to make sure you follow free tier eligible resources. So under free tier, yeah. Free so, under, go ahead.
Okay, then if I create this EC2, then it will not be free, yeah?
Yeah, T2 medium doesn't fall under free tier category.
Okay. So then free is for what? For 12 months?
Let me show you real quick here. So this T2 micro server, T2 micro, you can play with T2 micro. That's instance type, which falls under free tier category.
I see.
Yeah. And then you always check this free tier. Let me just change it to English. Always check this free tier, services that are eligible for free tier. For instance, you can use S3 bucket and you can upload objects up to 5 gigabyte. And then RDS, you can also use RDS DB-T2 micro. You can use DynamoDB up to 25 of gig storage. SageMaker, Lambda up to 1 million free requests, Lightsail, and etc. Or the other option, let's say you created your resources and you don't want to get surprise billing, right? You can always billing. You can set up a notification. So metrics, billing, there you go. Billing, and then create alarm. So let's say if your currency USD. So for instance, let's say if your monthly spend is over $5, you can set up a create new topic and then send your, put your own email address and then you can create this topic. So basically what we are trying to do here, let's say you are using your EC2 or any AWS resources, and for that month it goes over $5, it will send you a notification that, hey, you went over your specified threshold.
Okay, yeah, I understood now. Thank you.
Yeah, I can send you the link how to set this up, but it's like I was navigating this through. It's so simple. All you have to do is just specify the your trigger, meaning that if it's over $5 or if it's over $10, then you will always get notification. Okay, sounds good?
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so let's check our server. It passed both health checks. And then if I, oh, of course, the IP address has changed. Let's connect to the server. Probably what happened is I didn't start HTTPD service. There you go. So as you can see, I changed my instance type from T2 micro to T2 medium. And then after restarting the HTTPD service, I can still, see my web content. Okay. So yeah, this is how simple and how easy to change instance types. One thing to note about it, when we are trying to change the instance type, there are certain limitations. And first is, let's say my current instance type is T2 medium. I cannot jump from T2 medium to something like M5 or C5. And if you remember from my earlier explanation, C instance types, those are CPU optimized instance types. And M instance types, those are general purpose instance type. So when you are changing your instance type, for instance, if it's running on T2 medium, you always have to select like T2 categories. You cannot jump from T2 to CPU, CPU optimized servers. Okay, so in order to jump to C5 or M5, what I can do, I can create AMI image. So I'm basically cloning or creating template out of this server. So how can I do this? I can come to these actions again, and then from here, I can create image. Now let's say go viral, and today is 17/20/2020. Image description test and create image. Once I create image, again, let me go a little slower. Click actions, then from here, select image and select create image, and you will end up in this dashboard. All right. And then now if I go to this AMIs, you will see that my AMI is pending status, so it's being created. So while it's being created, let me demonstrate to you how you can add volumes. So first, if you remember, I said when you are creating volumes, you always have to make sure that your volume is in the same, it has to be in the same availability zone as your server. So my availability zone is US East 1C. Subnet ID is 5AC1. So let's come here, create volume. General purpose for the size, let me just show like 10 gig, and then let's choose USDC. I don't have to select snapshot. So if I want to restore from the snapshot, this is where I can, select the snapshot ID and then create volume, close. So this volume is not created yet. Okay, so now it's created. Let's tag this, or let's name this test EBS. And click on actions. And then from here, so the purpose of this demo, I'm trying to attach, or I'm trying to add more storage to my server. So that's why I'm selecting attach volume. And then this is because I created the volume in the same availability zone as my server, it automatically pops up when I'm trying to attach to a certain server. And then device, and then now click attach. Cool, the state shows in use state. So now if I come to my server, and now you see that I have two different, storage or two different block devices that is attached to this server. Okay. Any questions about this?
No.
Cool. So as you can see, again, it's very simple to manage, very user-friendly. So now let's go back to our AMI. So this is available. From here, what I can do, I can select launch. And then T2 micro. Let's just review launch. I think I went too quick, but basically, let me go back. So now I created that image, and if you notice one thing in here, under my AMIs, I have this operating system, or I have this template or the clone version of my existing server. And our purpose is to demonstrate, let's say we have T instance types, and then how can I jump from T instance types to something bigger? And in this case, let's select, I want to select M5 large. So just to give you more context, M5 instance types have two virtual CPUs and then 8 gig of RAM. 8 gig of RAM. And then also, if you look at the network performance capacity, it can support up to 10 gigabit of network performance. Whereas T2 micro was really small, like I had only 1 gig of memory and 1 gig of virtual CPU, right? So let's go back here again. M5 large. And then I can skip all the options in here. And I mean, I know that it's going to be, yes, I want to continue next. One thing I want to make sure it's enabled. Since it's launching from the template, I don't have to pass the user data. Add storage, 8 gig is more than enough. Configure security group. Let's make sure it's using this one, which has port 22 and then port 80 open. Review and launch. Acknowledge launch instance. So in an ideal case scenario, Now, if I try to go to this web browser, it's not gonna work, but what we can do, we can connect to the server and restart HTTPD. It should work. So these are all Linux commands. All I'm doing here, I connected to my server using SSH protocol, and then from here I'm checking if my web service is active. As you can see here, it says inactive dead, and then I started my service. And if we check the status again, it should say active running. And then from here, let's go back to content, and then now you can see web content. So just to reiterate again, what we did in here, we created AMI, or we created a template, or we cloned our server, and using this, let's say like first I deployed my application on T2 Medium, and then after it goes to production environments, I realized that T2 Medium is not enough, and I need to change that instance type to something bigger, something like M5 large, and that's why we created AMI, and from that AMI, we launched our server. Any questions?
I think no questions.
I see this availability zone are different, but you said that it must be same, right?
Oh, the availability zone for the volume has to be different.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So in first case, what we did, we created AMI, or we cloned this server and then launched different server out of this clone, or out of this template. And then in here, what we did, we just added additional disk space to the existing server. Did this clear up for you?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Nice. So yeah, let me double check this here. I think, yeah, same IP address. And then as you can see, it's working. So I don't want to keep paying for M5 large. So, and this is excellent case how to terminate. Just go to instance state, from here, select terminate, and then yes, terminate. While it's terminating, few things about AMIs. So what you can do with this AMI, you can, what if I have a AWS account in different region? Or what if I have, let's say like I don't, for some reason, I'm closing out this account, and can I share, or can I take it out to somewhere else? The answer is absolutely you can. How you can do this is copy AMI, select destination. So for instance, let's say like right now I'm in Virginia region, right? And I want to change my region to, I don't know, let's pick a region. Let's say like Europe. Copy AMI. And then now if I go to Europe and click my AMIs, it's copying to this new region. It's gonna take a little while, but the idea is that, let's say I have first I launched my servers in Virginia. I tested out. I have user base in America, and then now I want to launch this application and test it out in London. And I want my server close to the end users. I can just select the same AMI and then copy to this new region. And then from this new region, I can launch new server. So this is really cool feature of AWS. And can you imagine now it doesn't matter you are in Chicago, or it doesn't matter if you are in Astana or Almaty, you can just now you have like access to all global infrastructure that AWS has. So as I explained on previous workshops, AWS has 24 different regions, and all you have to do is just change your region, and now you have access to this all globally, available resources. Do you want me to launch server out of this region, or the idea is clear for you?
For me, it's clear.
Okay, cool. So let's go back to Virginia region. So EC2 dashboard. How can I, what else I was going to show you? Yeah, as a part of the demo part, this is all I have. And again, you will be surprised when you start working with AWS, because now as you can see, everything is kind of like, it's so easy to manage. And then also, if you want to automate, there are lots of, options, lots of capabilities. So the only limit is your imagination. Okay, so in this next slides, in the next few slides, I want to touch base on the bigger picture. So putting building blocks together. So yesterday we talked about identity and access management and S3 bucket, and today we did go over on EC2 servers. But those are not, only servers or products that we use on a day-to-day basis. Usually, how our production-like customer environment look like. So this is one of the diagrams that we put together for our end user or for our customers, and I just want to explain on a bigger picture, how do you integrate your services? How do you, what are the best practices and what are the things that you have to consider while designing someone's AWS environment? First thing first, it's a VPC. VPC stands for Virtual Private Cloud. And it's basically just a network parameters or network isolation. This is an isolated network environment where you can deploy your resources. So yeah, and then this is everything in orange, kind of like borderline. That's my availability zones. And within availability zones, I can have different subnets. So if it's, these concepts really new to you, think of, this VPC, let's say like one neighborhood, and then availability zone is like maybe street, and then subnets you can think of as a building. And then servers, it's like units in that building, okay? So always for subnets, we can always specify by the server purposes. If it's a web server, then tag your subnet as web subnet. And then if it's a app subnet, then tag your subnet as application subnet. So if I have a auto-scaling environment and if I want to share certain data across two different servers, I can use Elastic File System or Elastic File Server. And if it's a eBay-like or MetaArray-like application, I can use auto-scaling. And then on the backend, I can use RDS servers, or it's basically a database which is managed by AWS. For AWS managed RDS instances, you as a client or from the client perspective, you don't have access to the operating system. So let me show you real quick in here, RDS. So when you create a database, you can select engine option. As of now, it supports MySQL, MariaDB, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, and PostgreSQL. And then Aurora, it's a MySQL compatible AWS database. So once you create this database, the only thing that you are given is database endpoint. You cannot SSH to database server. So everything is managed by AWS. So yeah, on the backend, we can have a database, and then this is my Bastion server. Bastion server is basically a jump server. The reason we have this here, it's Amazon's best practice. All this like web and application servers, we can keep it in a private subnet. And in order to access to the servers, we have to first come to this Bastion server. And then from Bastion server, we can jump to this subnets, which are located on a private subnet. So why we do this? The reason behind this, it's a security. So for instance, if someone is trying to do a DDoS attack, or someone is trying to hack or get into your servers using port 22, they cannot get to this directly. There is always like a first layer of security, which is a Bastion server. And I have the same set of resources on the right, and this is just to point out, like, you can have a different VPC for production environments, and then this is a different VPC for staging or dev environment. Up here, I have a CloudFront. CloudFront, it's a caching content delivery network, or I'd say cache service. The purpose of CDN is to provide faster content to the end users. And then CDN is redirecting traffic to application load balancer. And the purpose of load balancer is to balance out the load. For instance, let's say like I have a metrorail.com, and then first user comes and the session is redirected to this server. And when second user comes, it will redirect the traffic to this other server. So again, the purpose of load balancer, as its name kind of like says, it tries to balance out the load on the servers. Okay, this is again, this is very simple diagram, but generally this is how production environments look like. But on real environments, it's much more complicated. We show like application stack, we utilize config, CloudTrail, GuardDuty, all other services that AWS offers to improve the security or to improve the cost optimization, we can add and integrate with other AWS services. So any questions about this?
No.
Okay. So now, let's say maybe some of you interested on some of the like required skill sets for cloud engineer. If you want to learn this, I don't know, this skill, or if you want to learn, or if you want to become cloud engineer, what are the required skill sets out there? First, of course, you need to know one or the other cloud platform. Because I'm skilled using AWS resources, of course, I will advocate for AWS. But always keep in mind, there are other cloud providers like Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, Alibaba Cloud. What else? Yeah, these other like main cloud providers, at least in United States. I have never used Alibaba Cloud, but I know that it's becoming popular in Asia. So yeah, you have to choose one or the other cloud platform to get started. And then on the first workshop, I mentioned that there are 175 different services offered by AWS. You don't have to know all of them. If you know basic services such as EC2, S3, ELB, autoscaling, if you know a few things from the code developer tools, like if you know how to set up pipeline, so if you know this core basic services, then it should be good enough to get started. And then once you join to a certain company, they will provide you training, they will explain you their environment, and based from that, you should select or you should learn required services. And then second, a very important skill set, you have to know how to automate your day-to-day job. To do this, you can learn Bash scripting, you can play with AWS Systems Manager, or you can learn Ansible. Ansible is just a tool that helps you to automate configuration management. So let me simplify this. What do I mean by this? So let's say if I want to add users to my servers, and if it's just 1 or 2 users, then that's fine. I can just manually add those users, right? But what if my company has global footprint and I have over 500 users? Can you imagine doing this, adding this 500 users manually? It's gonna take lots of time, and it's gonna also error prone. What if I mistype someone's name, right? So in order to automate those kind of tasks, you can use Ansible, you can use Puppet, or you can use Chef configuration management tools. And then another important skill set to have is to know how to manage one operating system platforms. It could be Linux, it could be Windows. I have a strong Linux background. We do have dedicated Windows team. So in our company, we use both Windows and Linux. But when there is a project related to Windows, I can help from the AWS side, but everything related or specific to Windows configuration or Windows automation, I can hand off to a Windows team. Version control system, Git. So you need to know how to pull the code, or Git is very useful skill set to have. So you need to know how to use Git. And then web application servers, Apache Nginx. this is also must-have skill. CI/CD tools or continuous integration, continuous development tools. Jenkins, Code Deploy, Circle CI, Travis. So there are so many tools in this domain, so you have to pick one and be good at it. But in simple words, what is CI/CD tools? CI/CD tools, it's a software applications that helps to build and deploy code. And then networking, basic understanding of what is TCP, TCP/IP, what is HTTPS, how networking works under the hood. So these are the required skill sets to get started as cloud engineer position. Any questions?
I have a question. I saw yesterday they have awstraining.com. So can we get this information or training from there? And what about certificates? So is it okay if I get certificate? I mean, if I'm going the right way to get this all about this?
Yes, actually your question is really great and it kind of helps me to transition to the next slide. On the next slide, as you can see, I offer some learning paths and some training courses. So first thing, of course, you open up AWS free tier account and then take advantage of AWS offered free labs and free courses. You can go to this amazon.quicklabs.com and they have like variety of workshops, variety of hands-on labs. The only disadvantage of it, sometimes you have to spin up, not sometimes, but for instance, let's say if you want to learn CloudFront, or if you want to learn DynamoDB, or if you want to learn RDS, sometimes you have to go over your free tier budget. And again, as you have seen from, let me show you my billing dashboard. As you can see, if you really careful about your resources, you don't have to, you're not going to spend, you know, lots of money. For instance, last month I spent $9. This month it's like only $2, couple dollars, you know. So yeah, don't forget, for instance, like don't forget, let's say you spin up M5 EC2 servers, and then if you forget for 24 hours, then it's going to generate nice bill for you. So every time when you practice and spin up servers or spin up other resources, always make sure you delete them after you're done with practicing. Okay.
I see.
Yeah. And that's why setting up that billing alert helps. So let's say you spin up something, and if you forget, you will get notification saying that, hey, you set up, your threshold was $5, but now we see that something is chewing up your money and it's over $5. So other resources, Linux Academy and 8cloudguru.com. So 8cloudguru.com, actually, these two organizations used to be two different entities. They used to compete to each other, but 8cloudguru bought Linux Academy last year, and now it's becoming just you know, one platform. And then the other free resource is edx.org. edx.org has courses on Linux, courses on software development. One course that I would suggest, check out CS 15, I think. So the Harvard, it's a course offered by Harvard, and they go over computer science basics, it's basically introduction to computer science, just like introduction to computer science. And in that course, they go over history of computer science and what is binary and what is programming. So as a foundation, that course is really great. And again, it's free, but if you want to get certification or certificate that you did go through, that proves that you did go through this course, then you have to pay like, I want to say $50, and you will have a Harvard issued certificate. The other learning platform is cloudacademy.com. It's also very similar to a Cloud Guru. I have never taken, but some of my colleagues, they were using this and I heard really good feedbacks from them. And of course, you can always make a reference to AWS official documentation. And Udemy is another great platform. You can select. Right now, I know Stefan Marek, I think this guy, he has really good resources on Udemy. And most of my colleagues, they have taken his courses to get certified CSA, practitioner, and all this, all certifications that AWS offers. You can take his courses and pursue your certification path. So speaking of certifications, I have 5 AWS certifications, 3 associate level and 2 professional levels. Professional, certified solution architect professional and DevOps professional. I think out of these 5, DevOps professional was the difficult one. But all the associate ones, you have to take your time, go through all the labs, understand, how things work under the hood, and always make sure to take practice exams, because those helps to time yourself, also to gauge your level of understanding. And AWS also offers official practice test. I think it costs like $20. And it basically simulates AWS exam. And based on that, for instance, if let's say if I'm going to professional level certification, I always like to take those practice question first. And if I score like 40%, then there is no point going to the certification. I always try to make it over 80%, and then after that, okay, now I'm ready, and now let's go to the real certification. All right, so that's what I can think of now.
Since we get these certifications, can we just immediately apply for a job with all these certifications?
Yes, for sure. Unfortunately, I don't have much information about, job market in Kazakhstan. But for cloud engineers, it's a little difficult to get remote job. Because, when you work for cloud engineers, now let's compare software developers and cloud engineers. For software developers, there is a certain project. For instance, I want to develop XYZ product, and client gives you requirements, client gives you mockups, client gives you most of the information that is needed to software developer to start building certain application, right? Whereas for cloud engineer, it's a little different engagement. For a cloud engineer, you have to work with the team. You have to troubleshoot production issues. You have to be on call, and you always have to be on the customer engagement interface. And for that reason, at least my company, they don't like to hire people from different countries. Because first, it's a time difference issue, and second, you cannot put people together in one room. And in cloud engineering position, it's very important to have certain type of team culture, certain type of integration. But good news is after COVID, we have been working from home over, I want to say like, so since March 16th or whatever, we started working from home. And I'm pretty sure this pattern is going to change in the future. Maybe I can go to Kyrgyzstan and have my own team and support someone's production environment in Chicago. So definitely after COVID, things going to get interesting, and definitely it's going to change the usual pattern of all IT domains. Did I answer your question?
That would be great. I'm from Kyrgyzstan, so you can come here.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, always, I'm not trying to discourage you, always learn, get this new experience. And I'm pretty sure if you really strong candidate, there is no limit. You can find job from America, or you can, live in Kazakhstan or Kyrgyzstan and work for a company in Europe.
Назгуля, спасибо вам большое. Наверное, мы закончим, да, уже у нас 10 минут, 9 минут осталось. Спасибо вам за время, за информацию. Вы зашерите, да, с нами все вот эти презентации?
Да, конечно.
Чулпан, если вы оставите этот email, я закину вам все эти презентации.
Назгуль, большое спасибо за ваше выступление.
Да. Для меня лично это было очень полезно, и для Чулпан, мне кажется, что она уже 3-й день с нами. И спасибо большое.
Если честно, я даже за рулем, но все равно смотрела, и потом попыталась там где-то найти информацию, чтобы чуть-чуть понять. Вот, поэтому вот, в принципе, у меня вообще бэкграунда IT нету, но я вот именно этим заинтересовалась, поэтому я подключилась. Мне было очень полезно. Спасибо большое.
Да, пожалуйста, я очень рада, что говорил такая платформа, где предоставляет всем желающим получить такой опыт, exchange. Окей, Балгын, я тогда... Sorry.
Нет, спасибо.
Балгын, я тогда отправлю вам все эти...
Да. И мы
первый слайд-шоу получили, да?
Да, я получила, у меня вот на почте висит.
Окей, круто.
Спасибо вам большое за ваше время, за ваш материал. Ага, да.
Спасибо. До свидания.
До свидания тогда. Отключаемся. Спасибо вам большое. Я вам еще напишу.
Всем хорошего дня и спасибо за сегодняшнюю сессию.
Да, спасибо, давайте.
Пожалуйста. Всем продуктивного